the Marshall House in Georgia, stands as a silent witness to a history drenched in blood and sorrow. Built long before the Civil War, it was thrust into the heart of a nation torn apart, transformed into a makeshift hospital for wounded soldiers. Imagine the groans of men lying on rickety cots, their eyes haunted, their bodies broken by the merciless grip of war. The air must have been thick with the coppery scent of blood and the agonized whispers of the dying. And yet, that was only the beginning. The house, with its elegant windows and high ceilings, absorbed it all. Every corner, every creaking floorboard, every shadow seemed to remember the pain it had witnessed. Even today, those who enter the Marshall House speak of chilling encounters. Visitors have reported sudden cold spots that seem to follow them through hallways, a coldness that creeps up their spine without warning. Shadows move where no light should reach, and fleeting figures appear just at the edge of vision, soldiers in tattered uniforms, their eyes hollow with untold stories. Some claim to hear faint murmurs, whispers of long-lost names, echoes of a time when life and death were constant companions. The spirits here are not malevolent, but they are insistent, as if trying to remind the living of the horrors they endured. The continuity of their presence is almost palpable. Night after night, the spirits seem to wander the same halls, reliving moments of fear and uncertainty. Jinn, or restless spirits, as some locals believe, intermingle with these lingering souls, adding layers of unseen energy that even the bravest hearts cannot fully comprehend. It's as if the house itself is alive, breathing with the memories of those who walked its floors decades ago. Walking through the Marshall House, one cannot help but feel that the building watches back. The eyes of unseen soldiers seem to follow, questioning, pleading, perhaps seeking acknowledgement. Doors slam without cause, cold drafts whip through rooms locked tight, and the floorboards groan under invisible footsteps. There is an almost hypnotic tension, a suspense that makes every shadow a potential story, every whisper a message from beyond. For those who dare to linger after dark, the spirits grow more vocal. You may hear a faint drumbeat, the distant sound of marching boots, or the soft, sorrowful sigh of a soldier recalling a life abruptly ended. The stories of those who worked here, nurses, doctors, and even visitors, speak of experiences that defy explanation, moments where the line between the living and the dead blurs into a chilling reality. Every encounter draws you deeper into the house's story, a story written in shadows, carried in whispers, and preserved by the spirits who refuse to leave. The Marshall House's story begins long before anyone speaks of ghosts or cold spots in the raw, relentless chaos of the Civil War. It was no ordinary home at that time. It was transformed into a hospital, a place where the living and the dying coexisted under one roof. Imagine entering those halls as a soldier, wounded and terrified, the echoes of cannon fire still ringing in your ears, your body battered, your uniform soaked in sweat and blood. Nurses and doctors moved quickly from room to room, trying to mend what could not always be healed, their faces pale, their hands trembling as they tried to soothe pain that no human touch could truly erase. The air was thick with the smell of iron and antiseptic, mingled with something far darker, the invisible weight of death itself. And in that darkness, something began to linger. Spirits were born in that hospital, not from malice but from the intensity of suffering. Souls that had not yet moved on began to imprint themselves upon the very walls. Each groan, each whispered prayer, each dying plea leaving an unseen mark. The continuity of these spirits is remarkable. Long after the war ended, long after the soldiers were buried, and the hospital closed, the energy of those who suffered here refused to leave. Visitors today often speak of feeling an almost magnetic pull in certain rooms, a sense that they are stepping into a moment frozen in time. Some report seeing figures in tattered uniforms, their faces pale and haunted, moving slowly as though still tending to wounds or searching for lost comrades. There is an eerie logic to their appearances. They are not random, but deliberate, replaying the trauma, the fear, and even the small moments of human tenderness that punctuated the horrors of war. It is in these moments, when the shadows seem to thicken, that the presence of Jinn, or restless spirits as local folklore calls them, becomes apparent. They intermingle with the soldiers, almost invisible but undeniably felt, amplifying the tension, twisting the ordinary into something otherworldly, and reminding any living visitor that the line between life and death in this house is porous, fragile, and dangerous to cross. The suspense builds with every step through the Marshall house. Even the most skeptical visitor cannot ignore the sensation that someone, or something, is watching from the corners of the room. Footsteps echo where no one walks. A cold breeze snakes through spaces locked tight, and sometimes, just sometimes, a whisper drifts through the hall, calling a name long forgotten by history. Every detail of the hospital's past, the way beds were arranged, the layout of rooms, the places where soldiers died most frequently, seems to shape the ghost's presence. They are not mindless apparitions. They are echoes of specific lives, individual stories of fear, courage, and despair. The suspense is continuous because the house does not reveal its secrets all at once. It lures you, draws you deeper. Each shadow a potential story, each creak a warning. Even the air itself seems charged with energy, vibrating with the memories of the wounded, the dead, and the restless, like a song no one alive can hear, but everyone in the house feels. To walk through the Marshall house is to walk through time itself, where the horrors of war are not distant history, but living, breathing entities that follow, observe, and interact. And in this dance between past and present, the spirits maintain their presence with a continuity that is both mesmerizing and terrifying. They remind anyone who dares enter that some stories are never truly finished, that some souls never truly rest, and that in the Marshall house, the dead are never quite gone. Even today, the Marshall house continues to cast its unsettling shadow over anyone who dares to cross its threshold. And it is here that the real terror begins, the chilling encounters that visitors cannot easily explain. From the moment you step inside, there is a sense of being watched, a feeling that your very presence has disturbed something long dormant. Cold spots appear without warning. Patches of icy air that creep along your neck, your arms, even your heartbeat, as though invisible hands are reminding you that you are not alone. These sudden drops in temperature are more than a physical sensation. They are whispers of the past, ghosts reaching across the years, insisting that the stories of their suffering be remembered. It is in these moments that the continuity of the spirits becomes undeniable, for the same coldness, the same sensation of being observed, has been reported countless times across generations of visitors, creating a haunting thread that binds the living to the dead. Shadows move just at the edge of vision, elusive and almost teasing, yet impossible to dismiss. Some visitors swear they see soldiers in tattered Civil War uniforms pacing the hallways, their faces pale, eyes hollow, silently enacting the duties they could never complete in life. Others glimpse fleeting figures, almost transparent, appearing and disappearing in seconds, as though the house itself is replaying fragments of its dark history for anyone perceptive enough to witness it. These apparitions are not merely tricks of the eye, they are charged with energy, the product of both human suffering and something older, something darker. Jinn, restless entities that roam the house alongside the soldiers' spirits, adding layers of supernatural complexity. They are not always malevolent, but their presence amplifies the suspense, warping perception, making ordinary movements feel threatening, making silence roar in the ears of anyone daring enough to linger. The suspense is continuous, creeping into every corner, lingering in every shadow. Doors seem to move of their own accord, opening to reveal emptiness, or closing to trap a visitor in a single room with an unexplainable presence. Floorboards groan beneath invisible footsteps, footsteps that echo in patterns too deliberate to be random. Sometimes, faint whispers drift through the halls, calling names or murmuring phrases that fade just as you strain to hear them. It is impossible to predict which hallway, which room, or which staircase will host the next encounter. And this unpredictability becomes part of the house's spell. Each visitor is drawn into a dance of suspense and fear, feeling the weight of history pressing upon them, the continuity of the spirits reminding them that the past is never truly gone. Even at night, when the Marshall house is silent to the casual eye, the ghosts are far from dormant. They continue to replay moments of agony and care, a living theater of human suffering and resilience. Jinn whisper in corners, brushing against the edges of perception, while the ghosts of soldiers patrol the rooms they once occupied. The combination of human spirits and supernatural entities ensures that anyone walking these halls is never truly alone. The suspense is not a momentary thrill. It is a constant companion, a pulse that quickens with each step, each glance into the shadows, each sound that cannot be traced. To witness the Marshall house is to experience an unbroken chain of spectral continuity. The ghosts are there to remind visitors of their stories, to connect the living to the dead, and to ensure that the legacy of suffering and endurance during the Civil War remains palpable. The combination of cold spots, apparitions, whispers, and Jinn makes every visit a test of courage, a journey into a space where the past refuses to release its grip, where suspense is woven into the very air, and where the spirits, insistent, watchful, eternal, demand acknowledgement. The Marshall house does not merely host spirits, it preserves them in a way that feels almost intentional, as if time itself has slowed to accommodate their endless wandering. The continuity of these souls is striking. Night after night, year after year, they retrace the same steps, revisit the same rooms, and relive moments of pain, fear, and fleeting solace, creating a presence that is as methodical as it is haunting. It is as if the house remembers, holding each echo of agony and each sigh of relief in its very walls, replaying them for anyone sensitive enough to perceive. The soldiers of spirits, once flesh and blood, now drift between the living and the dead, tied to the spaces where their suffering was most acute, and their persistence is chilling in its precision. Those who linger long enough begin to notice patterns. How the same shadow appears at the same corner, at the same hour, or how a sudden cold draft will follow the same hallway, as though invisible footsteps are pacing in time with the past. This continuity is not merely a curiosity, it is a message, an insistence from the spirits that their stories are unfinished, and that the horrors they endured cannot be forgotten. Jinn, the restless spirits of folklore, seem to intertwine with the soldiers' ghosts, unseen yet palpable, adding a layer of supernatural energy that makes every movement, every sound, and every shadow feel significant. They heighten the suspense, creating an atmosphere where the ordinary becomes sinister, where a door creaking open or a faint sigh is no longer a trivial detail, but part of an ongoing, unseen narrative. Visitors have reported hearing whispers that repeat, almost ritualistically, phrases that were likely spoken decades, or even centuries ago, as if these spirits are communicating not just with the living, but with each other across time. It is this persistent, cyclical presence that creates a sense of unease, the feeling that the house itself is aware, watching, and participating in the stories it preserves. Walking through the Marshall house, one cannot help but feel a strange rhythm to its hauntings. There is a cadence to the footsteps that are never quite your own, a pattern to the shadows that flit across the rooms in near perfect repetition. Even when the house seems empty, the ghosts of soldiers continue their nightly patrols, revisiting the spaces where they were cared for, where they suffered most, or where they took their final breaths. The continuity of these apparitions suggests that their presence is not accidental. It is as if the house and its spectral inhabitants exist in a loop, replaying moments over and over in a choreography of memory and grief. Each visitor becomes a silent witness, a participant in this spectral theater, feeling the tension rise as if the walls themselves are whispering, reminding all who enter that some stories do not end, some souls do not rest, and some houses never truly sleep. The presence of Jinn complicates this further. Their energy often unseen but intensely felt. They shift the air, tug at the edges of perception, and manipulate the continuity of the ghost's movements in ways that make the ordinary unpredictable and the extraordinary terrifying. It is a dance between human spirits and supernatural entities, a continuous loop that draws visitors into its spell, creating suspense that builds not in moments, but in hours, lingering long after the house has been left behind. To experience the Marshall house is to step into a living memory, where ghosts replay their lives, Jinn weave through the unseen spaces, and continuity is a thread connecting past, present, and the spectral forever. The presence of Jinn and unseen forces within the Marshall house adds a dimension of terror that goes beyond mere history or the tragic echoes of soldiers. These entities are subtle yet undeniable, existing in the spaces between what is seen and unseen, tangible and intangible. Visitors often report an oppressive feeling that cannot be explained by drafts or creaking floors alone, a sensation that something watches, something waits, something moves just beyond the limits of perception. Jinn, in particular, are believed to inhabit areas where human suffering has left its mark, feeding off the residual energy of fear, grief, and unrest. In the Marshall House, with its legacy as a Civil War hospital, the intensity of such energy is overwhelming. It lingers in every hallway, every corner, and every room where soldiers once cried out in pain or whispered to those around them for comfort. These invisible entities do not merely coexist with the ghosts of the dead. They interact with them, shaping and amplifying the haunting, manipulating the atmosphere to create a presence that is at once continuous and unpredictable. The suspense created by these unseen forces is relentless. A visitor may feel a sudden tug on a sleeve, or an inexplicable chill that seems to linger longer than any natural draft. Shadows twist and shift, appearing to watch, to mimic, or even to communicate. Whispers drift through the hallways, sometimes indistinct, sometimes eerily clear, repeating phrases that seem tied to past moments of suffering, as if the spirits themselves are speaking through a filter of the jinn's energy. This creates a profound sense of continuity. The past is not past here. Every sound, every movement, every sensation is layered upon the ones that came before. A spectral palimpsest, where history is rewritten in real time by the interaction of ghosts and jinn. Visitors cannot help but sense that the house itself is alive, breathing in patterns that reflect the agony, hope, and unresolved despair of those who never left. What is particularly unsettling is the unpredictability of these encounters. One moment, the air is still. The next, a door swings open with no human touch, a shadow glides across the wall, or a sudden cold spot grips the room. The jinn's presence ensures that the ghost's movements are not static but dynamic, constantly shifting in response to the energy of the living. This interaction heightens suspense to a nearly unbearable level. Even those who enter with skepticism find their certainty challenged, their senses assaulted by phenomena that cannot be easily explained. Every creak of the floorboard, every draft, every whisper becomes suspect, part of a larger narrative that is as continuous as it is terrifying. The spirits of soldiers, the residual energy of the hospital, and the restless jinn together create a living, breathing haunt, one that draws in the curious, the brave, and sometimes the foolish, and refuses to let them leave unshaken. In this house, continuity is not merely a measure of time, it is a force, a rhythm that unites past and present. The ghosts move as they did when they were alive, and the jinn manipulate these movements to amplify suspense and fear. Visitors often report feeling followed, watched, or even subtly guided by invisible hands, as though the entities themselves are orchestrating a performance designed to reveal the house's hidden stories. Each encounter is a thread in a tapestry that stretches across decades, a tapestry woven from sorrow, unresolved anguish, and the relentless presence of spirits that cannot rest. The Marshall House is more than haunted. It is alive with the interplay of forces beyond human understanding, a place where suspense is perpetual, continuity is sacred, and the boundary between the living, the dead, and the unseen is blurred into an experience that captivates, terrifies, and never lets go. The Marshall House does not merely tell stories of the past. It demands that anyone who enters feel the weight of history pressing down on them, that they recognize the persistent presence of those who cannot leave. The house itself seems to breathe with the memories of its inhabitants, both living and dead. And it is within this living memory that the true haunted experience emerges. For those who step inside after dark, or even during the quiet hours of late afternoon, when shadows stretch unnaturally long, the atmosphere becomes almost tangible. Ghostly apparitions drift along corridors, their steps silent but deliberate, retracing the motions of soldiers long dead. Their eyes hollow yet pleading, their forms flickering as if reality itself struggles to hold them. These spirits are not capricious. They maintain a continuity that is chilling, appearing in the same rooms, at the same angles, at the same times, almost as if the house itself has programmed them into an eternal ritual of remembrance. The suspense in this environment is relentless. A visitor may find themselves in a room where the temperature suddenly drops, the cold crawling up their spine with a weight that seems alive. They may hear whispers carried on invisible currents, fragments of conversations from decades past, cries of pain, or moments of fleeting relief, interwoven into the very air around them. Shadows move where no light should reach, lingering just long enough to make one question whether the eyes are deceiving or if something else is guiding them, something unseen and intelligent. It is here that Jinn are often reported. Invisible entities drawn to the strong emotions left behind by suffering. Their presence amplifies every sensation, bending perception and making ordinary events extraordinary, as if the house itself were conspiring to remind the living that they are never truly alone. The ghosts' interactions are not random. They replay moments from their lives, repeating actions, gestures, or patterns as though trying to complete unfinished business, or perhaps teaching the living the weight of what once occurred here. Doors may open and close with no visible cause. Floorboards may groan beneath invisible footsteps, and lights may flicker as though acknowledging the energy that fills the room. These encounters carry a sense of continuity that is difficult to shake, the feeling that the spirit's lives, fears, and memories persist in parallel with our own, layered atop the physical space of the house. Visitors describe an almost hypnotic effect, where attention becomes heightened, senses sharpened, and every small sound or movement takes on a significance it would not normally hold. Suspense becomes part of the fabric of the visit, a constant companion that never rests, just as the spirits themselves never rest. Jinn add another layer to this spectral theater, subtly influencing the environment, nudging objects, or shifting the energy in ways that make the ordinary seem uncanny. Their presence is felt rather than seen, a pressure at the edge of perception that keeps visitors alert and uneasy, aware that something is watching, moving, and perhaps even communicating. It is a continuous interaction between the living and the dead, human and supernatural, ordinary and otherworldly. This interplay heightens the sense of suspense to near unbearable levels, creating an immersive experience where the Marshall House is no longer merely a building, but a living repository of history, memory, and energy. The house teaches a lesson that is impossible to ignore. The dead are never truly gone. Their stories are stitched into the very fabric of the Marshall House, preserved in the movement of shadows, the whispers of spirits, and the subtle influence of Jinn. Every visitor becomes part of this story, drawn into its continuity, feeling the suspense, and sensing the persistent presence of forces that refuse to rest. The Marshall House is not just haunted, it is alive, in the most chilling and captivating sense, a place where ghosts and Jinn conspire to create an experience that lingers long after one has left its doors, ensuring that the legacy of its past endures in every creak, every cold spot, and every whisper that drifts through the air. As we stand at the threshold of the Marshall House, it is impossible not to feel the weight of history pressing upon us. These walls have witnessed not only the brutality of war, but the resilience of the human spirit. They have absorbed the pain, the fear, and the fleeting moments of courage of countless soldiers who walk these halls. Their lives forever etched into the fabric of this haunted place. The continuity of their presence reminds us that history is never truly past. Its echoes linger, shaping the spaces we inhabit and the stories we tell. The jinn and ghosts that wander these rooms are not mere figments of imagination. They are living testaments to the human experience, to lives lost and memories preserved, urging us to remember and to honor those who came before us. Visiting the Marshall House is more than a journey into the supernatural. It is a journey into the past itself. Every creak, every whisper, every cold draft is a thread connecting us to history, forcing us to confront the sacrifices and suffering that shaped the world we live in today. It is a place that teaches us caution, respect, and curiosity, reminding us that some stories are too powerful to fade, and some spirits too persistent to ignore. If this story has stirred your curiosity, if the whispers of the past have sent chills down your spine, then do not let the experience end here. Share this journey with others who are fascinated by history, haunted places, and the unseen forces that shape our world. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and become part of a community that explores the mysteries of the past, the tales of the restless, and the truths hidden in plain sight. Each share, each comment, each subscription ensures that the stories of the Marshall House and the countless other haunted places like it live on, connecting history, mystery, and the supernatural in a way that captivates the imagination. Remember, the past is never truly gone, and the Marshall House stands as a reminder that some spirits, like history itself, will always demand to be remembered. Step carefully, listen closely, and respect the whispers of those who still roam its halls, for they are the keepers of stories that refuse to be forgotten.